This episode is brought to you by BetMGM. Sign up today with BetMGM, the exclusive betting partner of The Athletic, and get a $1,000 risk-free first bet. Plus, get a free 3-month subscription to The Athletic. Just sign up at betmgm.com/theathleticpod, that's P-O-D, to take advantage of this special offer from the kings of sportsbooks. That's betmgm.com/theathleticpod, P-O-D. New customer offer, paid in bonus dollars. Visit betmgm.com for terms and conditions. Cue the disclaimer.
Must be 21 years of age or older to wager. Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, or West Virginia only. Excludes Michigan disassociated persons. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado, Nevada, and Virginia. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help in Michigan. 1-800-GAMBLER in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. And 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. In Tennessee, call or text the red line at 800-889-9789. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana. Promotional offer not available in Nevada.
Greetings and welcome back to One True Pod, brought to you by DirecTV Stream. Get your TV together with the best of live and on demand. Learn more at directtv.com. We are the Big 12 podcast on the Andy Staples Show and Friends podcast feed. Thanks as always for listening. I'm Sam Kahn, joined by my friends today, Max Olson and Jason Kersey. Guys, it's Red River Week. I'll start with you, Jason. How fired up are you?
It's the best week of the year. I can't wait. It's absolutely my favorite game to cover every year, and I'm so excited to share the press box with you and your first trip to the Cotton Bowl. Well, maybe not your first trip to the Cotton Bowl, but your first trip to this game. Yeah,
my first trip to the Cotton Bowl was 2012 for the Ticket City Bowl between Houston and Penn State. Not exactly what I envisioned when I first went there.
This is going to be a lot different than that.
If the listener doesn't know, like it is kind of like, it is like kind of like the bouncer at the club. Like Sam would often come to Red River and he would say, hey, I'm Sam Kahn here with ESPN. And they'd say, you're not on the list. And they would not let him into Red River. So this is, he's tried to get into this game. But no, I'm just kidding.
That's true. Close the velvet ropes on me.
I just love that. Sam, you're finally worthy of going to Red River. Congratulations, man.
I know. I'm so excited. I got my hotel. I'm driving up on Friday. Going to check out the fair a little bit on Friday night. Probably get there early on Saturday to take in all the ambiance as the teams come in and get ready for a long, interesting day that should be a pretty good game, I think.
There's really no such thing as getting there like too early in the morning, I feel like, on Saturday.
Yeah. So what time do you guys usually get there? Max, what time do you get there normally when you go?
Oh, I don't know. Try to like do 7:38 or something like that. Ooh. It's important to get out there and drink the really cheap bad coffee and the community coffee. And it's really important to get that first corny dog in the system, get some mustard on it. That's the breakfast you have. Obviously the Rudy's in the press box is nice, but you got to at least start the day with a corny dog.
Yeah, 100%. You have to. It's mandatory.
And then I don't know about you, Jason. I try to you save like the fried Snickers for the post game. Once you're all done working, you go out there, maybe you grab a drink, but I go try and find that, whether it's fried Snickers, fried Oreo, whatever. You treat yourself at the end.
And that's also when you get a beer as you're walking out. I feel like and
then you walk out of there with a pocket full of tickets, and you always forget that you have all these extra tickets lying around at your house, and you never think to bring them the next year.
A couple of years ago, I spent all my tickets that I still had on my way out on the saltwater taffy, on just a crap load of saltwater taffy. It lasted me for a while. Yeah, I think you were with me when I did that.
Yeah.
So that's an option.
That's all. This is all good, valuable intel that I need. So
are you guys going to go try and do like the Pecan Lodge on Friday? I like doing that move too. Like try and getting something good in Dallas Friday night.
We haven't discussed full plans on Friday quite yet. I know Chris Vanini will also be at the game, so we still need to work out what we're going to do on Friday. But the only thing I want to make sure I do is go to the fair a little bit just to get a little preview on Friday night. But Pecan Lodge is a really good call. Certainly can't go wrong with getting some brisket there on Friday.
Also, like Terry Black's over there too. That area's got some good stuff. I'm jealous. I mean, I am going to be in the great state of Texas this weekend and can't wait to get back. But I'm going to be going to College Station to watch the former top 10 Texas A&M Aggies take on take on Alabama and see if they can mess around and keep it close against the best team in the country here. So that I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see Alabama up close. I imagine they've got some pretty decent looking players. So I'm excited to cover that one and be back in the state. But I will miss palling around with you guys at the fair.
That A&M game looked a lot better 3 weeks ago than it does now.
Sure did.
At least, Max, you'll get to see one of the two teams that we know are legit contenders in the country, because that's
that's
it.
right. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do you guys feel like I know Texas already lost a game, but you feel like the winner of Red River is going to suddenly be, I mean, for all the concerns people have had about Oklahoma up to this point, like whoever wins this game, is it just going to be like a crazy hype fest from here? Or is it, I mean, I don't know. How do you think this game's going to sort of change the narrative a little bit?
I feel like for Oklahoma, it's a chance to really have an impressive win. They haven't had a complete win yet this year. I mean, last week, Kansas State, the offense gets going a little bit, the defense struggles. So I still don't know what to make of this Oklahoma team. And then for Texas, they've looked like a different team since the Arkansas game, since making the quarterback change. So I don't know. Does a win over Oklahoma propel, dare I say, Texas back into the playoff conversation?
I don't know that. I don't, for the time being, yes, but I wouldn't go that far, because at least
the loss is a quality loss at this point still.
It is, but
now they got Ole Miss this week, so we'll see if Arkansas loses that one, then they sort of drop out of the picture here a little bit. But
they've got to run the table the rest of the way in order to be that team, and of course win the Big 12 championship. And if they beat Oklahoma, clearly they're good enough, but I just don't know if I'm there with the depth yet on that roster to be able to do that. And like we said, it's hard to run the table in the Big 12. No team has done it since 2016. So, but they're definitely, if Texas wins on Saturday, they're definitely legitimate Big 12 championship contenders, and I don't know that I would have pegged them as that coming into the season. I didn't peg them as that coming into the season.
No.
Yeah.
So
no, me either.
So as you know, as you guys have probably gotten the hint by now, it's going to be a lot of Red River talk today. Later in the show, we'll be joined by Blinken Riley and Kyle Umlang, two statistical gurus that you may know from the Twitterverse on each side of the Red River rivalry. We'll talk to them later, but let's dive into talking about this game. Jason, I'll start with you. Oklahoma, you saw them in Kansas State last week. They got a win. The offense looked like it showed a few things. Did they find themselves enough in Manhattan to make this make you confident that they're making progress on that side of the ball?
Well, they clearly were better. I mean, Kennedy Brooks got the ball, which I've been banging that drum for the entire season that he should be getting the ball more, and he got 15 carries. And lo and behold, they had their best offensive performance of the year. I think that he's essential to them. The offensive line played a lot better. I feel like they seem to have a little bit easier time. They still are way too penalized. Oklahoma's one of the most penalized teams in the country. That has been a consistent theme really throughout the Lincoln Riley era. So that's something that's going to have to get shored up. But the problem was the defense, which really for Oklahoma had been their strength for the first 4 games. And they couldn't get off the field. And I think that's a real concern when you're playing against Bijan Robinson. The inability to get off the field on 3rd and 4th down, that feels like that could be a real problem.
Yeah, I thought that I watched that game a lot. I watched all of Texas TCU pretty much. There's just like a little stuff with the OU team where even when they kind of pull away and do things right, then like Malik Knowles takes that kickoff return to the house, and then all of a sudden it's like dramatic again and stuff. It's like there has to be some part of Lincoln that just sort of like rolls his eyes like, when is this team going to just sort of like really click and just run away from everybody,
Well, that play was especially ridiculous because it only happened because of a really bad unsportsmanlike conduct penalty.
Right.
That made it where Gabe Burkich couldn't put that ball in the end zone. I tweeted during that game that it reminded me of Arrested Development, J. Walter Weatherman. And that's why you don't commit personal fouls on scoring plays. So I mean, yeah, they kind of can't get out of their own way.
Yeah, and that's not to say I'm not saying they're not a good team. They really are, and they certainly that was like I'm sure that every week Lincoln Riley is still just saying like this team's getting tougher. They're learning to win close games, all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. There's I feel like we've seen just enough from Oklahoma and just enough from Texas to feel like, to talk ourselves into like, man, this game's going to be like incredibly competitive in a 4-quarter fight and come down to it, be as classic as all these games we've seen lately with, with Ellinger against the Sooners and all that. Like, and I'm not sure if I'm totally there yet, but I don't know. I keep waiting for OU to just sort of like start smoking people, and it hasn't quite happened yet. Maybe that's a testament to, K-State's better, West Virginia's better, Nebraska is looking like they're better. It could be just a testament to who they've been playing lately, but this is like it is where, like, isn't it worth mentioning, like, last year's game was freaking insane, right? Like, that's, and in terms of recent Red Rivers, Jason, I mean, where did that one hold up in terms of, with all the overtimes they played, the Rattler deal? Like, there's something about this rivalry that it kind of doesn't matter. They're still going to play a crazy game, and that's how it seems like it's kind of been with Lincoln lately. Yeah,
I mean, last year's game is arguably one of the greatest Red Rivers ever.
I think so.
It was, 4 overtimes. My God, we got bonus Red River. What more could we ask for?
Right.
But that also was the game last year where Oklahoma found itself, and from that point forward, they kind of crushed people really the rest of the way. Other than the Big 12 championship game was close with Iowa State, the Baylor game was kind of close, but really they pretty well crushed people the rest of the way after they got the Red River game under their belt. So maybe that happens again. Maybe this is what they've needed, but maybe it's also what Texas has needed, because Texas, I always think about the early 2000s when Mac Brown and Bob Stoops were sort of in their heyday, and the game was always like a top 10 game. But there for a while, it was just sort of a given that OU was going to win. For about 4 or 5 years in a row there, OU just was the tougher team. They came in better prepared, it felt like, every year. But lately, I feel like Texas comes in just as ready to play this game, even when Texas is having a down year.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's been a game that obviously they get up for, but their level of play seems to raise even when they're not that great of a team. And the one thing that I'll be compelled by is this team, I think, has raised its level of play in the last few weeks, ever since its loss to Arkansas. And the question is will this team, with a first-time starter at quarterback, Casey Thompson, will they get caught up in some of the emotion? Bijan Robinson's a young guy. He played in this game last year, but only touched the ball 7 times. So are they going to get caught up in it a little bit? And I was just talking to Derek Johnson, who, former linebacker at Texas, this morning. He mentioned, he goes, when the first time when you ride that bus up there and you see the fans flicking you off and everybody at the fair, it's serious. This is a different deal than everything else. And so some of these young guys that are key parts, Xavier Worthy on Texas, I'm curious if they're going to get a little overwhelmed by the moment, at least in the early going.
So I thought some of those, like Sam, some of those like drops and stuff they were having last week against TCU, it's some of that stuff where you're like, man, like they're kind of reverting back to, I know Xavier Worthy didn't play for Texas last year, but you see some of that kind of stuff where they're just like a little bit off, or they're taking the right shots, but the passes are a little off, or they're dropping stuff. And you kind of were like, man, you do wonder how much that shows up in this game. Is it just, and we've seen these games with so many different coaches on both sides now. It always is about who's the more physical team. There's breaks and turnovers and all that kind of stuff. There's, injuries. There's been all sorts of other things that have swung these games, but it is about who's the more physical team. I'm curious, Sam, how do you see like the Texas O-line against the OU D-line? Because I think that's the one thing, especially in some of these more recent years. Like I think since Grinch has got to Oklahoma, that's been a real challenge for Texas up front to do what they want to do offensively against the way that Grinch has built a better front, but also done a really good job attacking and blitzing and making third downs confusing. That's
going to be such a critical part of this, because against Arkansas, that front struggled. They were giving up pressure with 3-man fronts, but ever since then, boy, they've played really, really well. Against Texas Tech, they were getting a hat on a hat. They were flawless against Texas Tech. Last week against TCU, paved the way for 272 yards, even with an injury. They lost Denzel Okafor at guard. He's out for the year. Andre Carrick plugged in at right tackle. They moved Derek Kerstetter over to guard. And they didn't seem to miss too much of a beat. Bijan Robinson was still able to find some holes. And That's going to be the interesting thing is I think this Oklahoma front, Jason, I'm sure you know as well as anybody, is a lot better than what Texas just saw against TCU. And I think that to me is like you said, Max, that's the matchup. And I think the question is Bijan Robinson, who just came off that 216-yard game and carried them to victory against TCU, what does he look like against the Oklahoma defense? Jason, do you think this OU defense is ready for the challenge that comes with a guy like Bijan Robinson with that heavy workload?
Well, first of all, Sam, when you said it, I had forgotten. Bijan Robinson had 7 touches in that game last year. That is insane. In a 6.4 overtime loss.
Well, and it started just like in the most ridiculous way, where they're going with Ingram right after they lose the TCU game, and Ingram fumbles, I think, on their first drive, right? And then they bench him. They can't play Ingram the rest of the game, but they still didn't get Bijan going either. So. Yeah.
So that just is a bizarre thing to think about. If he'd had 10 more carries, maybe Texas wins that game. But anyway, that's a different story.
He's going to have more than 7 touches in the first quarter this week. I can promise you.
Well,
here's one big difference from last week though. Like TCU through 4 games, they're averaging only 4 TFLs a game. Like they're in terms of total TFLs, they're tied for second worst in the country. Oklahoma's doing double that per game. You know what I mean? They're doing 8 a game. So I am interested to see how it, not just in sacks, but like how disruptive they are. Like TCU did not, I think Bijan Robinson only had 3 carries of no gain or less against TCU out of 35 or whatever. Like I'm interested to see how much OU can sort of shake things up front, because TCU just really couldn't against Texas. And
by the way, that's just bizarre to me. I think of, if there's one thing I feel like I know about TCU every year, it's that their defensive front is going to be solid. So it's just sort of bizarre to think about that. But yeah, the problem with Oklahoma's defense really has been the inability to get off the field, and it's manifested itself a lot in the last 3 games, but particularly against Kansas State. I mean, OU only had 2 possessions in the first 3 possessions in the first half in Manhattan. I mean, that's unbelievable. And so the offense isn't going to be able to get going the way that we're used to seeing if the defense can't get off the field. Kansas State converted, I believe, 12 of 20 third and fourth downs in that game. I mean, that's just the sort of thing.
Isn't that 3 straight games now of people just really limiting possessions on Oklahoma?
Yes, it's clearly part of their strategy, and Texas has the personnel to do that. And so I'll be interested to see if the defense can be better, because the OU defensive front, for as good as it's been this year, they weren't very good last week in Manhattan.
We are all trying to eat better. That is the truth. I am counting the calories as we speak, and boy, it doesn't feel like enough. But healthy breakfast doesn't have to be boring. Magic Spoon has the amazing flavors you love, but without all the bad stuff, and it's amazing as a midnight snack right before bed, unless you're me and you're doing the intermittent fasting. But oh my Lord, I would love some Magic Spoon when I'm watching football and I'm watching that Pac-12 After Dark game. Oh, it just sounds amazing, because it has 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving. Only 140 calories per serving. It is keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and low-carb. Plus, you can build your own box. The available flavors to build your very own custom bundle are cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, blueberry, cinnamon, cookies and cream, and maple waffle. That's right, cookies and cream and maple waffle, which were limited flavors. They're back permanently, and now you can put them in your own custom bundle because they sold out so quickly. Everybody loved them, so Magic Spoon brought them back for everybody all the time because they love you. So go to magicspoon.com/Andy to grab a custom bundle of cereal and try it today. And be sure to use our promo code Andy at checkout to save $5 off your order. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, get your next delicious bowl of guilt-free cereal at magicspoon.com/Andy and use the code Andy to save $5 off.
It's fall, which means football season is back, and for many of us, there's no better way to celebrate and enjoy the games than by having some skin in the game, which is why BetMGM remains the exclusive betting partner of The Athletic. And as a fan of The Athletic, you can bet $10 to win $150 plus a free 3-month subscription or extension to your subscription with The Athletic when you bet with BetMGM using our promo code. So just sign up at BetMGM.com, use the promo code TheAthleticPod at checkout to take advantage of this special offer from the king of sports Sportsbook. That's bet $10 to win $150 plus 3 months free from The Athletic at BetMGM.com and using the promo code TheAthleticPod at checkout. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions.
21 years of age or older to wager. Arizona, Colorado, Washington, D.C., Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia only. Excludes Michigan disassociated persons. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado, Washington, D.C., Nevada, Wyoming, and Virginia, 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help in Michigan, 1-800-GAMBLER in Maryland, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Call or text the Tennessee Red Line 800-889-9789 in Tennessee or call 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana.
Yeah, we got the matchup with Bijan and this defensive front. Lots of different angles of this game, but one of the things we touched on a little bit earlier was how different Texas has looked since that loss to Arkansas. Max, I'm curious, what do you think, how different this team is since they went to Fayetteville and got their butts kicked?
Yeah, one thing that's funny, so we put out the first round of stop rate this week. And Jason, that's like it's like the never nudes, like, there are dozens of us who believe in stop rate. Dozens. So shout out to my stop rate believers.
That's 2 Arrested Development references in the
That's right. We're loaded up. And I was looking at this both offense and defense, and Texas is like kind of in an interesting spot here through this schedule so far. Offensively, Texas is among Power 5 teams number 1 in the country in points per drive on offense right now. And if you looked at, like, if you flip stop rate and said, okay, what percentage of your drives are ending in points, Oklahoma and Texas are the top 2 offenses among the Power 5 in terms of scoring on a high percentage of their drives. The weird thing with Texas is 101st in stop rate right now. Not very good. Oklahoma's 45th. I know Oklahoma, they have the kind of defense where they should be in the top 30 or so, I would think. But do we know what this Texas defense is going to do this week, Sam? Like, I think their defensive coordinator is very good, and I think he's going to. I'm fascinated to see, like, whenever he would play Leach in the Apple Cup at the end of the year, they would always destroy Washington State and completely shut them down. I'm not saying it's the same offense. It's obviously not. It's way different personnel and all that. But I'm interested to see what he brings to this rivalry. It's always interesting to have fresh blood and new coaches in this rivalry. No
doubt. I think, to your point, Lincoln Riley has evolved significantly from what Mike Leach did. Mike Leach is hard-headed and loves to stick with what he does, and Lincoln Lincoln added a run game to a passing game. Yeah, I think he's the epitome of trying to evolve it every year. But no, that's a fascinating part.
I think there'll be some wrinkles, but does Texas defensively? I think they've gained confidence in recent weeks. I think they did some good things against TCU, at least in terms of getting stops when they needed to. But is Texas giving up 40 points in this game too?
Possible. It's possible. Again, I think when the stop rate came out, I didn't expect them to be that low. I certainly don't think they've been great, but I
don't watch them and say they're horrible.
No, not at all. Not at all. And I think Steve Sarkisian talked about, obviously they want to be strong in the red zone, and if that means they give up some yardage and they give up some long drives, if they can hold to 3 or they can get a turnover in the red zone, hey, they'll take that. And that's kind of where they are at this point. Their strength is in the defensive interior with Moro Ojimo and Keandre Coburn. They can do well there. I think the challenge is, you look at last week, a guy like Zach Evans, he ate Luke Brockmeyer's lunch. Both as a runner and as a blocker. And so is there somebody, is a Jeremiah Hall or Braden Willis going to do that to Brockmeyer this week? Or how does Texas adjust to that?
Riley's going to pinpoint all your weaknesses and he's going to hit them. They're very, very good at that, especially in this game. And I don't know. It's funny. Like, I remember I had these conversations with Tom Herman during his tenure where, he would always he was always very obsessed about playing very complementary football, having a very good defense to match up the offense. I pointed out to him, like, look, Oklahoma keeps winning the Big 12 title, and they, for many years up until they hired Grinch, they weren't playing very complementary football, and he was always very resolute, we're never going to do it like that. Like, he didn't believe that was the way to win the Big 12. it seemed like I know Sark wants to build a good defense here, but I think they kind of are just leaning into, man, we can be really explosive on offense this year. Let's just do that and then just try to get enough stops to get away with it.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's probably the best way to go about it. And ultimately, this team is with the offensive head coach is going to be dictated by what they do on that side of the ball. And Sark's going to try to control it with the run game, with the RPOs, with the play action, and just hope until you can recruit at the level that he needs. And this current recruiting class, they've got 8 guys that are defensive linemen or edge rushers, which tells you where they feel like they are from a defensive standpoint. It's going to take time to build that up. I think the offensive stuff you can develop a little bit quicker. But Jason, I want to talk to you a little bit. Lincoln Riley mentioned it yesterday in his discussion with the media that Red River rivalry is one of the key things that made this job attractive to him. And we've got a first-time coach now with Steve Sarkisian. What was Lincoln's acclimation like to this rivalry? And then to that point, what do you think we should expect from a newbie and Steve Sarkisian entering this rivalry for the first time?
Yeah, it's interesting. Lincoln Riley's first game in the Red River rivalry was not good. OU, and it was his fault in a lot of ways. They lost 24-17 to a pretty bad Texas team that I don't even think was bowl eligible that year, if memory serves me correctly.
I remember talking to someone after that game who said, because OU got on a roll after that, right?
Yes.
By running the ball.
By running the ball, yes.
Okay. I remember talking to someone after that game, and I guess Charlie Strong made a comment to someone being like they've got those 2 running backs are incredible. Like, they should just be running them all the time. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't understand why they didn't just run it down their throats in that game. But that's what this game can do to you sometimes. Is like you have some of that, and certainly we saw it with the Mike Stoops deal. Like, sometimes you have that moment of truth in this game where you got to figure out, hey, here's what we need to be the rest of the way.
Yeah, in that game, OU had Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine and barely ran the ball. OU lost, and
I think Strong was like, I would never lose if I had those 2, basically, like, because that duo was so good,
Right, and well, in the next week they went to Kansas State and won 55-0, and they've been carrying the ball. So I've always sort of assumed that Bob Stoops had a conversation with Lincoln Riley after that game, like, you got to get our running backs the ball. And really ever since then, OU has run the ball incredibly well every year. They always seem to have solid running backs. Last year was a little bit weird because Stevenson was out for so long, suspended. But yeah, I mean, this is it's always fascinating when a new coach takes over. Tom Herman lost his first one, lost most of his games against OU, and it's probably part of why he's not the Texas head, at least part of why he's not the Texas head coach anymore. And so this is extremely important. I will say, I looked it up. First-year coaches in this game are 19, 17, and 5. But you can't really extrapolate too much from that. Barry Switzer, I believe. No. Yeah, I think Barry Switzer lost his first. No, he didn't. Sorry, Darrell Royal and Bob Stoops lost their first games in this one. So we can't really take too much out of it based on this, and I don't think we can judge Sark too harshly. But it is going to be interesting to see how he comes out and performs in his first time in the Cotton Bowl.
Sam, from what you've seen so far, do you think, I mean, I know he's a veteran player and he's been waiting for this a long time. Do you think Casey Thompson's ready for this?
I do. We talked to him on Monday, and obviously he's a focal point of this game because of his family history. His dad, Charles Thompson, of course, played quarterback at OU. He's got deep Oklahoma ties from growing up there. I think he's ready. He's mature. To me, the way he's handled every time he's been thrust into a game, when he was thrust in the Alamo Bowl at halftime when Sam Ehlinger was hurt, thrown to the Wolves. I mean, not necessarily thrown to the Wolves, like really Hudson Card was thrown to the Wolves, but thrown in that tough situation at Arkansas when nothing was going their way, and he came in and calmly led them downfield and got them 2 scoring drives when they couldn't all day. I don't think any of this is going to be too big for him. To me, he strikes me as a guy with some composure and poise. So we've got that, and then we've, of course, got these 2 teams are going to the SEC, as you might have heard over this summer. We got Texas and Oklahoma there, got this Big 12 game right now, the rivalry game in the Big 12, and they're going to take it with them in 2025 or sooner. We'll see how that goes. But Jason and I had a story this morning about the kind of the tight relationship. The rivalry is very heated between the 2. Texas and OU hate each other. Texas fans yell OU sucks, and OU fans throw the horns down. But these two teams are really business partners at the end of the day. It's not just right now. This is something that dates back all the way to their time forming the Big 12. DeLoss Dodds and Donnie Duncan helped broker the Big 12, and we have now Joe Castiglione and Chris Del Conte are really close friends. We've known each other for 2 decades.
Really close. Yeah.
I'm curious, Max, what do you think of the nature of rivals being business partners, so to speak, when it comes to stuff like realignment?
Yeah, I mean, you think back to, again, like you think about those two putting their logos together on a letterhead here this summer and saying, "Here we go, we're going to the SEC together." I mean, it is starting to think, because you think about this game. Obviously, these fan bases hate each other. They love to bicker with each other, all year long on Twitter and all that. But now they're in it together, and especially against this Big 12 now. I mean, they are the pariah of the conference now in a lot of ways until they leave, and there's still a lot of hurt feelings in the Big 12 about what they're doing, the move they're making, even as the Big 12 gets its own act together. But yeah, I've that dynamic of, like, I'm not surprised that Joe Castiglione and Chris Del Conte are as close as they are. I thought, what was the bit about what they call each other?
Yeah,
I thought that was good.
Yeah, that was from Sam. Got that from Chris Del Conte. What do they call each other? The Godfather and the Don.
Yeah. CDC said that Castiglione calls himself the Godfather and CDC is the Don. And they like to joke about they're two of the very few Italian athletic directors in college athletics. So that there's a lot of that yucking it up going on between those two.
There's a period of time here when they're in this together, and I do wonder how these dynamics will evolve once they're in the SEC together too. I mean, is it still pretty locked arms as you go through this? I mean, obviously you'll still be, I don't know if it'll be divisions or pods or whatever. You're still going to be pretty in pretty close proximity here, no matter what schedules you're playing and stuff. But I do wonder how this will continue to evolve. But certainly, I think we all found out this summer that they're a lot closer. People probably have just sort of this automatic assumption about the Big 12 that OU and Texas are always clashing over things, and someone has to be sitting in the executive chair here, or like that there's always these power struggles between these kind of programs, and that's really not the case right now, at least in terms of the current leadership, and even with even with the presidents now too having to go through this transition together. They've certainly come very close together, and I'm fascinated to see how that relationship keeps evolving. But now they're in it together, and it's probably gonna, until they get out of the Big 12. I'm sure they're working on that together right now too, just figuring out the exit strategy, when that's going to happen, how they negotiate that, because I can't see one of them leaving the Big 12 without the other too. So it's fascinating how they're all tangled up now.
I thought, Sam, one of the more interesting comments that you got from CDC was when he was talking about how, playing Arkansas was great to sort of renew that rivalry. We've gone a long time without playing Texas A&M. I can't imagine us going that long, basically, without playing Oklahoma. And it sort of was interesting, perhaps a little dig at Texas A&M there, but I thought it was sort of interesting that what this game means to both teams, what this relationship means to both schools. It's a lot deeper than I think most people realize.
It is, and I can promise you that relationship does not exist between Texas A&M. And Del Conte comes from a position
nor
where...
will it when Texas joins the SEC.
Nope.
Yeah.
And Del Conte comes from a position where I think he wants to play that game. A&M, I think, has made it clear that it doesn't want to, but obviously it's going to be a moot point because they're going to share a conference here pretty shortly. So it is unfortunate, because I was in Fayetteville for that game, and it was absolutely electric. Like, I've long been a proponent that I think Texas A&M should continue to play each other, and I'm glad that they will once they're SEC mates. But I think it's important that they preserve Texas Oklahoma, and I'm glad that it's still going to happen, because I think it's necessary. It's just part of the fabric of college football, and it's a fun game. And we're talking about it. We're spending all this episode talking about it. It is a fun game with so many emotions and momentum swings and all that stuff. So I'm glad it's happening. The interesting thing is Max touched on it just a minute ago. Joe C said, and it definitely stuck out to me. He goes, "We don't vote on everything the same way. And yes, they're going to work together as they precipitate their exit from the Big 12, but they're also, it doesn't mean they're going to do every single thing together from here on out.
Yeah, I thought that was he really seemed to want that point out there that just because we're friends, just because we're aligned on some things doesn't mean we're aligned on everything. He didn't give specifics about what those things are naturally, but I did think that was it was interesting to me that he wanted to make that point. That wasn't really even in response to a question. He wanted to sort of make that point. Hey, we're not just in lockstep on everything here.
Yeah, there's probably still a sensitivity of I'm sure Joe C and his president don't want there to be some perception that, yeah, we'll do what Texas tells us to do.
Right. I think that's
because I hear that. I mean, I hear that from people around the Big 12 who were over the summer who were really frustrated about all this and venting and stuff, who sort of made this assumption that Texas is the one that wanted to go to the SEC and dragged Oklahoma along with them. You know what I mean? I certainly don't think that they want people. And again, that's just people speculating and venting and stuff like that. And I don't think that's true. But there's always that stuff's always going to be connected of people, sort of wondering well, who's the boss of who here a little bit,
That's funny. It's a lot of feelings to be massaged, both between the fan bases of these two schools and around the Big 12. And of course, there'll be some feelings to massage in the SEC because this is two big brands coming in the conference. But that's some good talk about this. We're going to get a little bit more Red River talk here and introduce a couple unique guests. Some people that you may know from Twitter if you follow Texas, you follow Texas A&M, Blinken Riley and Kyle Umlang. Two guys, you've seen them drop stats and crack some jokes, and we're going to pick their brains about the rivalry here for a few minutes. And now we're thrilled to welcome some guests onto One True Pod, and we're going in a little bit different direction this week. For Red River Week, instead of inviting a coach or a player like we've done many a time this season, we're going to bring on a couple of guys you may know from the Twitter sphere. We welcome in Blinken Riley and Kyle Umlang, co-host of the podcast Statistically Speaking, a college football podcast focused on advanced stats. They're also pretty active on Twitter. If you follow the Longhorns or Sooners, you can usually find them posting interesting stats about those teams and many more in college football. But we're excited to bring them into One True Pod. Guys, how are you guys doing? Kyle, I'll start with you. How are you doing tonight?
Fantastic. I don't know if you saw Twitter today, but there's a brand new Aggie video up from their midnight yell from before the Mississippi State game. So it's a great day.
Blinken, how are you?
I am doing well. It's my favorite week of the year, so I'm doing really well.
Good deal, guys. Well, we're thrilled to have you both. Blinken, I've talked to you a lot more on Twitter. I feel like through the years, just because I cover OU, but gotten to recently kind of become more acquainted with Kyle, and it's really good to have you guys on the show. And I guess to start off, I'll just have each of you. How did you guys get into this? Where you guys have become sort of in many ways the chief instigator on either side of the Red River rivalry. Blinken, I'll start with you.
A few years ago, I was actually working from home. I was working contract work, and it was one of those days where I didn't have a whole lot to do and I got bored. And so I decided I'm going to make a whole new Twitter account that is just my Oklahoma football stuff. Right. And so, I start following a bunch of people, and my thing is statistics. I come from an engineering background. My actual day job deals with statistics and metrics, and sports statistics especially are something I love to find I love to find those little nuggets, those little things that when you hear it, your eyebrows kind of scrunch up and go, what in the world? I love those little types of tidbits. And so, one day I just started tweeting out a couple, and, the ball just started rolling from there. And as you know, Twitter is an endless supply of people saying dumb things. So that is never in shortage. There's always somebody to dunk on Twitter. So and it's just grown from there since I think that was summer of 2017. And, it's just grown from there, and it's opened up so many opportunities. I've gotten to do all kinds of things like this, and I've gotten to do radio, and I've gotten to meet so many new people, and it's just been a great experience.
Kyle?
Yeah, mine's kind of similar, kind of different. So I just graduated from grad school, getting my master's in data science, and part of one of my classes was I had to get into like Tableau. It was an information viz class, so I started getting into Tableau, and I was making just random graphs and charts about random stuff. And someone's like, "You should get on Twitter because there's a whole community out there of data people that like that kind of stuff and will share your stuff and give you tips and stuff." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." So I started posting my stuff on Twitter. I had to find my login because I hadn't used it in like 5 years. So I logged in, started posting stuff. It got a few likes, nothing really crazy. And I did this college football one comparing A&M and Texas's like full history. And it, like, I went to bed and it blew up overnight somehow. Sam Ellinger retweeted it, and just I woke up with like 500 new followers. And from there, I was like, okay, only college football stuff from now on. No one cares about the death rate of cats in Asia. So I'm going to start doing college football stuff only. And then, yeah, it's just blown up since then. And I met Blinken, who's like the yin to my yang, I guess, since he's like the opposite. So it's been a lot of fun getting to know him and the whole Oklahoma community. A lot of them have embraced me with open arms, except for this week. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it seems like you guys have pretty civil interactions with the other side, a decent amount, which kind of surprised me a little bit when I see it.
I think I think a lot of it is kind of a mutually assured destruction type thing. Like if we both just kind of let loose, I'm not sure there would be anything left of Twitter afterwards.
Yeah, we keep it civil for y'all, for everyone else.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. That's great. Well, let's get to the meat of why you guys are here, because I wanted to hear kind of what you guys have. I'm sure that you've been researching and looking stuff up all week and tweeting all week and stuff, but I kind of wanted to just give you guys the floor for a little while and see what for lack of a better word, what kind of shit you guys have to talk to each other about OU Texas week.
Okay. Yeah. I guess we could just go back and forth, I guess.
Yeah.
So Oklahoma's first, second, third string running backs, not bad. They got 588 rushing yards, 6 touchdowns. Bijan Robinson, 652 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns. Hashtag running back you, apparently, this year.
Yeah, your last decent running back was actually was a Heisman winner, and that week that he was awarded the Heisman, Savage Garden had a number 1 hit.
I'm actually offended by the Deontay Foreman erasure in that comment.
I did not expect Savage Garden to come up tonight.
Yeah, no kidding.
Okay, we'll keep it on running backs. Doak Walker winners, Texas 4, Oklahoma 0. Bijan will be the 5th, guaranteed.
Since taking over the offense in 2015, Lincoln Riley's produced as many 1,000-yard rushers as Texas has had in the last 20 years.
Wow, that's a pretty good one.
That's pretty impressive.
That's not bad. In Blinken Riley's lifetime, Oklahoma has the same number of national championships as Texas.
Nobody on, obviously, the team, nobody on the coaching staff, not the athletic director, and not the president of the university have seen a winning record from the Longhorns in the Red River Shootout during their lifetime.
We need to find an older AD, I guess. More viewers have seen Oklahoma lose in the college football playoffs than the series finale of Seinfeld.
Wow. That's a good
which was about 76, 74 million. Not bad.
We don't need to bring up the series finale of Seinfeld, because I love Seinfeld, but that's not a great series finale.
No, I've actually never really been that impressed with any show's series finales. Like whenever they're done, I'm like, really? This is it? I spent 8 years for this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only one in my lifetime that I can think of, we're getting way off topic here with Veep. I thought Veep ended really strong, but that's about the only one.
Yeah, that one's actually pretty good. I like that show a lot.
I don't remember whose turn it is.
So I am ready. I am ready for this one. Texas from 2010 to 2020 had a blue chip ratio of 65.3% and a winning percentage of 56.5%. Texas is the only FBS school with a lower winning percentage than their blue chip ratio during that time.
Ouch.
Hey, blame one man. Actually, no, you blame two guys for that. Y'all know who they are. Peter Gardere is the only starting quarterback on either side of the Red River rivalry in the 120 plus year history of the series to have won 4 consecutive games against the other team. He led unranked Texas to 4 straight upsets of ranked Oklahoma, number 4, 15, number 6, and number 16 Oklahoma. He's such a badass. He once beat number 6 Oklahoma without scoring a single touchdown.
Peter Gardere. That's
I did not expect a Peter Gardere reference.
He's a legend. He's really all we have in the last couple decades.
Well, if we want to talk about streaks, how about Oklahoma's current streak of 6 straight years in the top 10, finished in the top 10? The last time Texas has done that was never.
So just to be clear, Blink and Riley's working with like a Pokedex of like 800 Pokemon, and I've got the original 150 to work with. Just FYI. Let's see. We got any more?
2 more if you got them. Let's go 2 more if y'all got them.
No team has lost more BCS or NY6 bowls than Oklahoma. Even if you broke it out by most BCS bowl losses or most New Year's Six bowl losses, no team has lost more than either than the Sooners. Notre Dame's catching up, FYI.
So offensively, Texas's most efficient season was in 1993 when they gained 7.4 yards per play. Oklahoma has maintained 7.8 yards per play since the beginning of 2015.
That's pretty good.
That's true.
That's not bad. So it's been so lopsided lately. I only have one last one, and it's for Oklahoma. Strangely enough, Texas win percentage from 1936 to present, which is when they started doing AP rankings. When Texas and OU are both ranked, Texas has a 43% win percentage. When OU is ranked higher than Texas, Texas has a 29% win percentage. And when they play on October 9th, Texas has a 36% win percentage.
Wow.
So I think we know how this weekend's going then.
All right, I'll end on not one that's too damaging and one that's about this week in specifically, and I think is kind of surprising when I found it. Texas has allowed the 5th highest percentage of drives ending in scores among the Power 5. Oklahoma has the highest percentage of drives offensively ending in scores in the Power 5. That was pretty interesting. I never would have guessed the Oklahoma part of that.
Yeah.
But I think that's very interesting.
Out of all Power 5, that's nuts.
I wouldn't have guessed that either.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have guessed that either. Well,
it helps when you got a kicker that can kick from the opposite 30.
This weekend better not come down to a kick by OU.
Well, Burke's just proven to be pretty clutch. No doubt about it. All right, now I want to try to forge a little peace here because I know that there's one thing you guys can't agree on, and it's Texas A&M hatred. So I'm going to give each of you guys an opportunity if you want to spout off some Aggie facts. I'm sure you have some queued up.
Yep, always. They just like circulate in my mind. They come so easily. They're really fun to think of. At their current win percentage rate, Oklahoma and Texas are due to arrive at the 1,000 win mark sometime during the 2029 season. A&M will arrive sometime in 2052.
Wow. That's a long time.
So I like going through lists of teams that have done something more times than Texas A&M, because the list is always long and hilarious. These are the teams, college football teams, with as many or more weeks in the top 5 as Texas A&M in the last 50 years. Oklahoma, Ohio State, Alabama, Florida State, USC, Miami, Nebraska, Florida, Penn State, Notre Dame, Texas, Michigan, Georgia, Clemson, LSU, Auburn, Oregon, Colorado, Washington, Tennessee, Pitt, Arizona State, UCLA, TCU, BYU, Utah, SMU, Stanford, Arkansas, Michigan State, Boise State.
How long is this list?
And Missouri.
Wow. I did not realize you were going to keep going that long. That is pretty impressive.
Let's see. No college football recruit has seen Oklahoma win a national championship in their lifetime. No college football recruit's parent, uncle, aunt, sibling, cousin, in-law, pastor, teacher, coworker, peer, neighbor, etc. have seen A&M win a national championship in their lifetime.
I like pastor being thrown.
You got to throw in a pastor.
One more for me. Texas A&M has lost 6 or more games in a season 8 times since 2000. Oklahoma has lost 6 or more games 7 times in their entire history.
Wow.
All right, Kyle, close it out. Last one.
Texas A&M has more Yell leaders than they have national championships, SEC championships, and that's it. They only have 5 Yell leaders.
Well, they only had one Big 12 championship.
Oh wait, no, it's national championships, SEC championships, and Big 12 championships. They only have 5 Yell leaders.
Wow.
That's good stuff. So before we go, one thing I want to get from each of you is a prediction on this weekend. Obviously, I have a feeling I know which team each of you will pick, but more importantly, I'm curious what you think the winning margin will be, how it will end up going. By the way, Oklahoma is a 3.5 point favorite over Texas going into the game. Kyle, I'll start with you. How do you think this one goes on Saturday?
Yeah. So the last 7 games have been decided by a score. This year is going to be no different. I believe, the Vegas is saying 3 points. I definitely could see coming down to a field goal at the end. Hopefully it's us kicking it and not Oklahoma. But I would say, like, if I had to guess, like 39-36 Texas, somewhere around there.
Interesting. Blinken, what do you think?
Yeah. So Vegas has it 3.5. Bill Connolly's SP Plus has this game as actually a 7.5 point favorite for Oklahoma. I don't think that's. I don't think it's going to be that way. I think it's going to be a lot closer than that. Give me like an Oklahoma win, like 31-28.
So close games all around. Everybody going with a field goal game. So. Yeah. Guys, it's fun. We appreciate you coming on to One True Pod. I appreciate you spending some time and dropping some facts for us. And good luck with your teams this weekend. Enjoy the Red River game, and good luck with your podcast. Again, Kyle Umlang and Blinken Riley, hosts of the Statistically Speaking podcast. Guys, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Decades of data show that investors who trade individual stocks underperform the market every single year. In fact, only 1% of day traders beat the market. If you're doing it alone, the odds just are not in your favor. So don't do it alone. Team up with Wealthfront instead. They can create a portfolio of globally diversified, low-cost index funds personalized just for you in minutes. No manual trades, no picking stocks, no watching the stock market every day. They automatically handle all the investing based on preferences that you control. And Wealthfront can even help you lower the taxes you pay as you invest. For the average client, their tax loss harvesting can cover more than cover the low annual 0.25% advisory fee. Best of all, it's automatic. Wealthfront is trusted with over $20 billion of assets, and you can get your first $5,000 managed for free by going to wealthfront.com/Andy. To get your first $5,000 managed for free for life, go to wealthfront.com/Andy. That's wealthfront.com/Andy. Go to wealthfront.com/Andy and get started today.
Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another lets you stream your favorite shows, and you're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friend's login for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all that entertainment you love without the hassle. And it's a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So get rid of all the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package.
All right, guys, time to go to the picks. It's that time of week where me and Jason relish what we've done in the picks, and then we make fun of Max. But last week it didn't really work out like that because Max went in a little bit of a different strategy, a little bit Costanzing, and I looked at the end of the weekend, and it worked out pretty well.
Somebody went 5-0 on their Big 12 picks last week by doing the opposite of what they thought was going to happen. And look, I think I just gotta keep it going here.
I think you got to ride it. I think you got to roll with it.
We're getting back on the road here. It feels good.
I think you got to go with strategy. Of course, we're picking against the spread. Here's the standings right now. I am first, 23-17. Jason's 22-18, and Max 16-14. But a strong week. He was 10-21 last week, so picked up quite a bit of ground here. So let's start off with the big game. Oklahoma, Texas. Oklahoma, a 3.5-point favorite against the Longhorns. Max, I'll start with you.
I think I don't know how to word this the right way. I am going to go against my belief here, and I'm going to take OU to cover. I don't think Texas will win outright. I don't. But I think 3.5 is like just one of those numbers where I kind of feel like this is a field goal kind of game, And certainly last year they go to all those overtimes. I'm not saying it's going to be the same as last year, but I don't know. I think I've talked myself into this being a very competitive game. I could see OU pulling away. I could see Texas just sort of, we've seen it now in that Arkansas game. I could see Texas just sort of struggling in that big pressure stage there to kind of put it all together. It's a very good coaching staff, but it's still first year for everybody with this. And, I think Texas is still, as much as we maybe want to have some doubts about Oklahoma, you watch the TCU game, and I feel like Texas is still kind of in that point where a lot of stuff still has to go right for Texas to win these games. They still have to really, they can't mess around and just luck into beating, Oklahoma this week. So I do wonder if it'll be a little bit sloppier from Texas, and we'll see. I wouldn't be shocked if Texas found a way to win this game. I actually would take Texas plus 3.5, but so I'm going to go with OU on this. Clearly, you can hear in my voice. I'm a little conflicted on this one. I don't feel very strongly about. I don't know. I know it's October, but I feel like we still just don't totally know enough about each team in some ways.
Yeah, I totally agree. Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, I've really gone back and forth on this one because given OU struggles, getting off the field, I could see Texas having a lot of success. I'm going to go with OU minus 3.5. I do think they win the game, and I think they'll win it by more than that. But I did not. This wasn't an easy one.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. It's hard to pick. I think the biggest struggle I have is with Oklahoma because they're undefeated. They've won every game, but they've won 4 of those games by 1 score essentially.
Yeah,
and it's difficult for me to tell is when they play this team that's comparable in talent level, what's it going to be? Whereas Texas got its butt kicked against Arkansas, but has been surging ever since and has played a different brand of ball.
Well, and Tulane and K-State shouldn't have been close margins at the end.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so there's kind of that from that cover standpoint, it is a little bit worrisome that, do they let Texas score some points there at the end and blow the cover too?
I think Texas is going to cover just what they've done offensively and where they're going with Bijan. I think they're going to score enough points to keep this at least within a field goal, but I could really see it going either way. So I think it's definitely a tough one. Let's go to the next one. West Virginia at Baylor. We got West Virginia coming off that loss at home to Texas Tech last week. Baylor, of course, coming off its first loss of the season at Oklahoma State. Baylor is a 3-point favorite at home. Jason, I'll start with you. What do you think about West Virginia and Baylor?
I just don't get the Big 12, okay? I just don't get it. West Virginia comes to Norman and almost wins, and I think, okay, they're pretty good, and they beat Virginia Tech. I think they're pretty good. Then they go and lose at home to a Texas Tech team that's coming off getting crushed by Texas. So is Texas Tech better than we thought they were? Is West Virginia worse than they thought they were? I don't know what to make of any of this. I'm going to go with Baylor, but I don't really know why, honestly. I'm going to go with Baylor.
Okay. I want to take Baylor covering the 3-2, so I have to stick to my system here and I guess go West Virginia +3. I don't know if that's the right move here because I think Baylor's pretty good, and they I think the 4-quarter fight with Oklahoma State, I thought was, you didn't win it, and you wouldn't say that game went, how you wanted it in a bunch of ways, but they still were pretty close to Oklahoma State. They really were, I thought. So, just couldn't score some points earlier. So, I'm gonna go West Virginia +3, but just because I'm still doing the opposite of what I think here.
Yeah, I think this one's tough for me too. Baylor really ran into a brick wall in Stillwater. It was the first time I think their offensive line and their run game really struggled for an extended period. Like I know Iowa State, they had their ups and downs, but they got shut down in the first half against West Virginia. It was really stunning to see, and I think this is such a big game for Dave Aranda because how his team responds coming off of this. This is a different team than it was a year ago, a different mentality. I'm curious to see how they respond. And West Virginia, like you said, it was an ugly game. They started out in a 17-0 hole against Tech. They came all the way back, tied it, had a chance at the end, wasn't able to get it done. I'm going to take Baylor to cover the 3. I'm going to say that the defense, I think the run game will get back. I think West Virginia's got a pretty solid defense, but I'm going to say that Bohannon and Treston Ebner and Abram Smith get it going again, and it's a home game, so I'll take Baylor to cover the 3. Next one, last Big 12 game. Only 3 Big 12 games this week. We've got TCU at Texas Tech. TCU, of course, coming off that loss to Texas. Texas Tech, as we mentioned, won on the road at West Virginia. It's a little interesting relationship here. Sonny Cumbie, the offensive coordinator at Texas Tech, spent some time, 7 years at TCU under Gary Patterson, so there'll be some familiarity there. Max, I'll start with you. We've got TCU is a 1.5-point favorite in Lubbock Saturday night at the Jones. What do you think?
I mean, I was really pumping TCU this year. I really was.
Me too, brother.
I think we were really buying.
Yeah.
And they've got this stretch now where they've got SMU, Texas, Texas Tech, Oklahoma, and oh boy, I don't know. Like I like this is the week when they gotta figure it out. I think, especially you lose this game. I feel like this is kind of one of those games where once again this year it turns into like, okay, how do we get to 6? It's going to be kind of a closer call now. If you don't win this one, so TCU, this is the week, guys. Like, don't prove me right, please, by actually figuring it out. So I'm going to go Texas Tech +1.5. I think TCU will show up, and I think this will be. I think it's time for a statement kind of game from TCU. But again, I have to stick to the thing that's saving my season. So I'll go Texas Tech +1.5. Don't feel very good about it because I think this is one of those really critical weeks where maybe they should give Zach Evans the ball more, Sam.
Maybe just a little bit.
I know you want to. I know you want to. Like, his pro career is important, and certainly if they can get 4 or 5 years out of Zach Evans, that'd be great. Man, that'd be great.
They're not getting 4 or 5 years out of Zach Evans, my man.
I think Zach Evans might go pro after next year. That's just my opinion.
I think so.
It might be time to give him the ball.
Jason, what do you think?
I'm going to go with Texas Tech again. I don't really know if I have a great explanation of why, because I don't understand this conference, but I just like Texas Tech at home, and I haven't been impressed with TCU. And I like Max was pumping them up quite a bit in the preseason, and they've been pretty disappointing. So I'll go with the Red Raiders at home.
I'm going to take Texas Tech too. I don't feel great about it because Tech has had some up and down moments.
Well, we're all going Tech, huh?
Yeah. It's I can't in good faith take TCU until they do a couple of things. One, give the ball to Zach Evans more, as we mentioned, and number two, stop the run. They've given up 622 yards in the run game the last 2 weeks. So Roderick Thompson starting to get healthy. He looked pretty solid last week against West Virginia. I have a feeling that if they can't get those two things fixed, I can't in good faith pick them to win. So I'm going to take Tech.
Bijan running for 90 in that fourth quarter was, and I know they put a lot on him to save the game and all that stuff. Texas did, and apparently shame on them, according to Gary Patterson. But
yes,
I think that kind of that was, I think that people know now. Like we'll see if can Texas Tech get that kind of run game going, but they certainly were able to over time kind of wear out TCU a little bit with the run.
Yeah, and
SMU did.
The thing is that Texas was able to do it when everybody in the building knew that's what they were going to do.
Yeah,
they needed 3 first downs. That they ran it 7 straight times to Bijan Robinson, and he carried them. It carried about 4.
He got all of their
defenders.
First downs in the fourth quarter. Yeah,
yeah, it was impressive. And so until TCU can fix the run game, I can't in good faith take them. And if Gary Patterson gives Zach Evans the ball 22 times this week, then I think TCU will win. But he hasn't shown me. He's only done that once this year, and that was against Cal. The last 2 weeks, they have not done that. So until he does that, I can't pick TCU. So I'm going to take Texas Tech to cover. Let's get close to wrapping it up here. We're going to go with our future Big 12 members. 4 games for the 4 new members. We got the Thursday nighter. Houston at Tulane, a short week, for both schools. Houston is a 6-point favorite, coming off a 45-10 win over Tulsa. Max, I'll start with you. Cougs and Green Wave, what do you think?
I guess Houston. I don't know. I was kind of that was an interesting performance by Houston last week. I mean, definitely a little bit eye-opening in terms of how they put it on Tulsa right away in that one. So I think I'll take Houston this week, and curious to see if they're starting to kind of put it all together.
Jason? And just to be clear, Max, you're not doing the opposite on.
No, I went 1-3 on the other on the future Big 12 schools last week. So we're going to try and course correct here a little bit more.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm going with Houston because after the season opener, when I saw Tulane very nearly beat OU on its home field, I really thought Tulane was going to be one of the best G5 schools. I really thought they could make a run like that, and they have not done that since. So. Their only win since that game was Morgan State, so I'm going to have to go with Houston.
I really wanted to pick Tulane, but they got handled at East Carolina last week, and that bothers me. And Houston looked really sharp. That defense, Doug Belk has those guys playing really fast, really physical. Offensively, I think Clayton Tune looked the best he has all season long, and he's starting to get healthy. So they're 4-1. I think Houston makes it 5 in a row. I'm going to say they cover the 6 on the road at Tulane. Next up, we've got Temple at Cincinnati, the Bearcats, who are carrying the flag for the current and future Big 12 after the top 10 win at Notre Dame. Cincinnati at home, a 29.5-point favorite over Temple. What do y'all think? Jason, I'll start with you.
Oh, I think I'm going to go with Cincinnati to cover. I mean, gosh, they're impressive. I mean, what a statement win at Notre Dame last week, and great for the future Big 12. Great for the Group of 5 right now. I think that it's pretty clear now that they could make a legit run at the play.